hanging out with us. That's Derek. I'm Rob. We are Sports Take, JAKIB Sports YouTube Network. Let's hit the like button if we could, friends. All right, let's talk some Eagles, Derek. Camp observations. So day 3 was yesterday. They practiced in shells and shorts, and for about an hour and 35 minutes approximately. They had a walkthrough today. Tomorrow looks like it's going to be pads on tomorrow. By all accounts, Jalen Hurts very, very sharp. Has looked good on both deep balls, intermediary passes. Really anything getting out of the pocket. Pretty on the money so far. So it looks like he's hit the ground running. That's encouraging for sure.
Yeah, I think he was like 16 of 19 yesterday. A couple of touchdown passes. Great touch on his deep balls. That's all good to hear. The offense, it seems that it caught up, finally got their revenge. Since camp opened, we'd heard so much about defensive players that have looked very good, but it seems like the offense hit its stride yesterday, which is good to hear. But then again, that's what we expect. We expect this offense to be far ahead of the defense when they hit the ground running for real. Anytime you're implementing 7 new starters on a defense, whole new defensive coaching staff, 2 so-called defensive coordinators, it's going to take a while before things come together. Hopefully it comes together a lot sooner rather than later. But for the most part, except for the elevation of an offensive coordinator on the offensive side, everything remains intact over there in the right guard. But, when you're playing between 2 Pro Bowlers, the right guard position is not going to suffer no matter who's in that position. So I'm not surprised that the offense finally had it today.
Yeah, absolutely. So he looked good. But, again, take it for what it's worth, Mariota struggled, apparently. Again, understand they're working on things. I'm not one who looks at it as it's the end all be all. I wonder, Derek, I said this to you in watching, and I finished it off. I watched all the quarterback Netflix series.
Yep.
I didn't really love the way that ended in Atlanta for Mariota. I know he got his knee done and he felt like he was having issues with his meniscus, but it sort of seemed like he just left him in the lurch.
Go ahead and say it. I know you want to say the quit word. The quit word.
I don't know. And again, Arthur Smith was very careful not to bury him. But I guess as a backup, it's fine. But I do worry a little bit about where this guy's mindset is if football's his biggest priority. I do worry about that.
Well, I think from a human element, when you come out of college as this highly touted quarterback, this big time prospect, you go as high as he did in the draft. You have all the attributes. And let's face it, he was one of these guys also, these new age quarterbacks that can take off and run at any given moment, could run the read option. First few years in the league, it looks promising, but then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, starts to tailspin to the point where now he's a journeyman quarterback. And then you subject yourself to being on camera 24/7 for a series. You get your opportunity to start down in Atlanta on a team that's going nowhere and trying to find and build an identity, and all of a sudden, the rug's pulled out from under you. That's a little bit embarrassing.
Yeah.
Anybody, and like I told you before, without giving too much away, now you understand why he faded out of the series once it was announced that he was being demoted.
Yeah. It really became, it was some Kirk Cousins, but it became the Mahomes show for the last few episodes for sure.
I mean, imagine if that was you or your son, how you
I get it.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, what else is he going to say? You want to hear him? Is he going to trash the team for making the decision? Is he going to suck it up and be the consummate team? Is he going to be forced to be the consummate team player on camera for the cameras? If he lets any type of negative emotion slip, can you imagine the backlash or criticism he's going to get for that?
Mm-hmm.
That was a trying time in his life. He's expecting a baby, and he's got to deal with this as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I hear you. We'll see. And again, if you're getting to your backup, you're generally in trouble if it's more than an extended period of time. Like if you get 2 or 3 games, that's fine. We've seen that the last couple of years with the Eagles, with Hurts going down, but it's a big deal. Anyway, he never developed as a passer the way that he needed to for the NFL.
Well, think about it like this also, Rob. Derek Carr is this prolific passer. He gets demoted the last few games with the Raiders. He doesn't travel with the team. He stepped away from the team.
Yep.
And it was mutually agreed upon. Maybe you shouldn't be here so you're not a distraction.
Good point.
So that man's getting paid 7 figures to sit at home.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Okay.
Look, I think it's fair, but we'll see. We'll see if he picks up his game a little bit here.
I don't care what you do in life. When something's taken away from you, we all have moments where we pout, we're disappointed, we're mad, we're angry. We think through scenarios of, you know what, I should have told them this, or I should have said this, or maybe I should say this and let people know what's going on. But then when cooler heads prevail, you sit back and you say, you know what do I gain if I lash out verbally? Nothing.
Right.
Makes you look worse than the people who made the decisions to diminish your role.
It's not that I wanted him to lash out. I just, I don't know. I don't know that it was handled the best way, but I guess that's sort of sports now too. All right. Beyond that, receiver, take it for what it's worth. Thus far, Quez Watkins has looked good. Now, I'll believe it when he starts catching balls in the games. That's where I'm at. But all we can go off of right now is what's happening at camp. And so far, he's looked good. He's looked like he's gotten almost all the reps as the number 3 guy, and thus far has played well.
You want to know what I want to say about Quez Watkins right now?
Yes.
Next topic. Until I see it in a real game.
Drew Rosenhaus now. Next question. Is that
next question. That's it.
Okay.
Next question.
Okay.
I got to see it to believe it.
All right. So that's that. Now, this is interesting. You may not be familiar with the name, and he's not exactly what you would call a household name, but Joseph Nagata. He's a receiver who apparently is really looking good thus far and is kind of outshining, at least in the early going here, Olamide Zaccheaus. So he's a receiver out of Clemson. He's good size, 6'3", 217, rookie out of Clemson, undrafted. But so far, he's looked very good, at everything, whether it's deep routes, intermediate routes, any of those kind of things. But here's the thing. Zaccheaus has the experience. He's done it in the NFL. He had a pretty good year last year in Atlanta, speaking of, where the quarterback situation was sort of up and down. So just a name to keep in mind, Joseph. It's Ngata, Nagata. Just keep the name in mind. Somebody you'll be seeing in preseason games, at least. That we know.
Okay. All right. Yeah. You know how I feel about training camp and all that preseason.
Okay. I'm just giving you who looks good, who doesn't. All right. This is interesting too. So Juergens is getting all the reps on the first team at the right guard spot. This is clearly his job to lose. The only way we're going to see Steen, I think, is if Juergens looks awful. I'm talking about non-injury. Is if Juergens looks awful. That's it. I mean, this is Juergens' gig.
But as much as we talk about Juergens right now holding that position, it's still etched in the back of my mind when Sirianni said he's the starting right guard for now, which means there obviously is room for somebody else to move in. Or to me, it sounds like maybe they're hoping somebody else can move into that role so they can put Juergens back as that definitive backup to Jason Kelce to keep him fresh in case something would happen to Kelce. Mm-hmm. You're right. It's his job to lose. But when the head coach says he's our starter for now, he covers all areas. He didn't tell you, hey, he's my starter. He said, hey, that's today. Tomorrow could be another story based on who gets caught up to speed. Yeah. We know they like bigger body offensive linemen. We know that. And with Juergens being 6'3" compared to Steen being 6'6", there's a vast difference there. But Juergens has earned that right to step into that role. Mm-hmm. No question about it. Yeah. And I think he can hold it down. But even if he starts, what do they really want Juergens to be for them? Is he that security blankets like for Linus in case the future Hall of Famer gets hurt? What would happen if Juergens starts and all of a sudden you have Juergens and Kelce hurt at the same time? Now, they obviously have a contingency plan for a third center, but when you get to that third center, not quite as fluid as one of those two guys.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. It's going to be interesting too. Let's say Juergens, this is a good problem, by the way, but let's say Juergens plays great this year at guard and then Kelce retires. Would you keep him at guard? I know I'm getting way ahead of myself, but hypothetically, it's kind of interesting to think down the line a little bit how that would look. But we'll see. Look, I trust their ability to develop these guys once they get him in there. I trust Stoutland, and I trust the guys who are playing next to him to sort of maybe make up if there are some mistakes made along the way to make
Yeah.
up. So look, I think everything will be fine, whomever it is in that spot. I really do. Also interesting, Jordan Davis says he's at about 340, 345, which is where he was last year. He said the difference between this year and last year for him, even though there isn't any specific weight loss, is he said his conditioning is night and day. He said what he did the entire offseason, even though he didn't lose weight, there was a lot of cardio, a lot of agility. What he said, a lot of moving is the way he explained it, not moving, from one place to another, like constant movement. And he said that he can now handle the reps a lot better than he was able to handle them last year.
To be honest, I honestly thought, with the off-season conditioning and stuff like that, I thought he would be closer to like 330, to be honest. And he said he's 340, 345. That's not a 3-down lineman, man.
Right.
I don't care what kind of shape you're in. That's a lot of weight to carry, especially when you're laying up against other guys, offensive tackles. And, that's a situational player. And maybe that's what they want him to be, is that, like a Vince Wilfork, was to New England for so many years.
Phenomenal that way. Yeah.
He was phenomenal that way. He was a situational player. Maybe that's what they want him to be, considering all the speed and versatility they have surrounding him,
Yeah, absolutely. Look, if that's, I'm not saying he's going to be Vince Wilfork, but if he turns out to be some semblance of that or version of it, he will have been worth it, because what he's going to do to help others, if that's the case, occupying guys, just stuffing everything up in the middle, almost being like a Hollis Thomas type. If he ends up being that kind of guy, that's very valuable. It's not overly glamorous or spectacular, and his numbers aren't going to be jumping off the paper at you or the screen at you, but you need that in that league badly.
When you look at the guys that are that size, the Haloti Nadas who played the game, the Tony Siragusas, the Vince Wilforks, their job is to eat up space, control gaps, command double teams so somebody can slip through the gap and be a disruptive force. But you have to be able to get some push. You have to be able to split the gap occasionally and get in a quarterback's face. If he's a situational player but not making some kind of play, then people are going to come down on him. And that's understandable. When you draft a guy that high, when you're the 13th pick in the draft and you're this phenomenal talent, and we understand that from the D tackle position, it's a thankless job. You don't get a lot of the individual accolades. There's very few. There's no Aaron Donalds across the National Football League, and Aaron Donald is not big for a D tackle. He's built to be a DN, but he's so exceptional at the D tackle. Everybody else is compared to him. Nobody else is Aaron Donald. That's a one of a kind.
Yeah.
But for Jordan Davis, with that type of girth, he better be able to do something more than just stand up straight off the line of scrimmage and maybe consume two blockers. You've got to do something that gets you mentioned or noticed periodically on a field.
I agree. Look, he's got to be a run stuffer. He's got to create push in the middle. And Anthony, says Hollis Thomas was Jordan Davis top 15 pick. I know where Hollis Thomas. I understand that.
Yeah.
My comparison was body size. What he was being asked to do is potentially what Jordan Davis is going to be asked to do. Obviously, let's not take everything like totally literally, please, folks.
Exactly.
I'm hoping that he can have the kind of impact what Hollis did a lot of times. He was very good in the run game, but what he was also good at was he would get a push up the middle, which is the toughest thing for a quarterback, to have a rush coming into your face. Exactly. That also allowed guys like Hugh Douglas and others to come from the end and tee off. That's what I'm hopeful he is, at least now. Like, do I want to see him get you 5-6 sacks a year on top? Of course I do. And I'm not trying to lower the bar for him. I would just like to see at least something. I mean, last year I get it. In his defense, he was hurt a little bit, but now you need to show what you can do here, in my opinion. I think we're going to see his running mate, Jalen Carter,
right,
like come off the screen. I think he's just going to be freaking awesome.
If you can get a D tackle who can get push, it messes up a quarterback's drop, whether it's a 5-step drop, 7-step drop, whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
You force them off this spot. They can't just sit in the pocket like they want to and plant their foot and deliver. You're going to force them to throw and run more. You're going to force them to make more off balance type throws. That's what the upper echelon D tackles are able to do in the National Football League. Can Jordan do that at 340, 345? That's what the Eagles are hoping. But again, we got to see it, And if he's going up against second and third string offensive linemen in preseason games, you're not really getting a true gauge in terms of what he can and cannot do, because 9 times out of 10, those guys are going to either be your backups or looking for work elsewhere when it comes down to definitive cut down day in September.
Yep. So that's the case with Jordan Davis. He's playing again in a lot of 4-man fronts. So Sidney Brown starting to make a little bit of an impact. Played very well yesterday. You're seeing them sort of work him in a little bit for Terrell Edmonds. He's a guy. Here's what it feels like for me with Sidney Brown. Feels like by about week 7 or 8, we're having, or maybe even a little bit earlier, we're having that conversation, Derek, where, hey, should he be playing more? Hey, should he be starting? Feels like it's going to take a minute, but he's already starting to show you some good signs here early, and what the potential that he has, because he definitely is a guy who has a nose for the ball. That's for sure.
Yeah, but if Reed Blankenship is playing up to expectation, there's not going to be a conversation, nor is there a need to have that conversation.
Well, it's more with Edmonds than Blankenship.
Well, what if Edmonds playing up to expectation? Then there's really not a conversation.
Well, obviously, if those two are both playing really well, he's not going to correct the lineup. I'm saying I think somebody may be, maybe not playing in their A game, and that's where he gets a shot.
Okay. Well, you know how we are. We see a shiny new toy.
Yep.
We want that shiny new toy in there, no matter what's going on. But if they're holding it down on the back end, he's probably going to get his playing time, as Nakobe Dean did, more so in special teams, more so than in between the stripes on the snaps, and that's understandable, But again, I think it's imperative we watch this safety position closely, because I can't say it enough. I've said it all off season since he's been signed here. Mike Tomlin doesn't just let defensive players go in their prime for a reason, without a reason.
That I agree with you, especially a guy who knows the system very well.
Yes,
like he does.
Yes.
So that's one, and then the other one is from a linebacking standpoint. Nicholas Morrow is struggling in coverage. Again, take all of this with a grain of salt, because it's camp and they're working on stuff. But he's struggling in coverage apparently, and that's where you could see some Christian Ellis worked in there. Nakobe Dean hasn't been bad, but he hasn't really flashed. He's just been kind of quiet. But he hasn't, it isn't one of those things where you're noticing him in a bad way. He's just been kind of quiet in general. So, that both of those spots, and that's another name. At least Christian Ellis showed it to you a little bit last year when he got some opportunities. It could be in there.
See, right now, I would imagine Nakobe Dean's head is swimming, because every day class is in session for him. You got an offense that's showing him different things, and I'm sure there's some guessing involved.
Yep.
So, if he makes a mistake, it has to be discussed. Why you should do this, or what did you see here? This constant discussions with the coordinators, with the personnel. Exactly. Why did you do this? What were you thinking? What do you think you saw? Here's what you do in those situations to audible out of it.
Yep.
Every day. So I'm not surprised that he's been relatively quiet. He's got to grow into that role. Yep. I've said that time and time again. It's not that you can just plop him in there. I mean, TJ Edwards wasn't that player.
No,
TJ Edwards wasn't a player 2 years ago that he was last year.
Exactly. And that's the thing. You got to have some growth. Like people like JM, who said Goddard? Exactly, JM. Who said Goddard? Who said he's struggling just with Goddard? Did I say that?
Nope.
No. So let's try and not make our assumptions here. He's struggling with everybody, apparently, that comes his way in coverage. So it's not just Goddard. So just for what it's worth. I mean, look, we'll see what ends up happening there. But the good news is Hassan Reddick back from the groin injury. Back. That's good. Get him out there, get him some reps, man. That's huge.
I don't think Reddick needs as many reps as he may get. I mean, when you talk about a groin injury, It's like a hamstring. It's like a calf strain.
Yep.
You know, when you think you're feeling good, you get out there and all of a sudden you re-aggravate it.
Mhm.
Everybody knows what Hassan Reddick can do. If there's one player on the field that doesn't need multitude of reps, it's Hassan Reddick. You know what his job description is.
Yeah.
I would be overly cautious with this groin thing, because if he re-injures it, usually when you re-injure it, it's worse than it was initially. You know, it takes you that much longer to come back from. You know, Reddick doesn't need the reps.
Yep.
It's the younger guys that need to get the reps. Whoever's backing him up, those are the guys that need the Nolan Smith. Those guys are the guys that need the reps.
That can be a blessing in disguise.
Yes,
Those
absolutely.
kind of guys. Yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
I mean, worry about it.
Oh no. You just want to make sure that he's good health wise. That's all you're looking for, because you know how there's a recurrence in those kind of injuries, man. That's why the Cincinnati's being so careful with Burrow here. To me, he doesn't even touch a practice field until prep for week 1.
Why should he?
Yeah.
You know what you're getting out of him.
Yeah.
He knows where he's supposed to be. You know, if anything, you can learn all the calls you need to learn in the classroom.
Yep.
His job description, in a lot of ways, while it fits in the concept, is more individual than it is within the concept, because he knows when he's coming off that edge. He knows what he's up against. They know what his specialty is. You know, there's no way I'd overuse him at this point. I don't need him until that first game against New England, to be honest with you.
Yeah. I'm with you. It's not even a thought. I would be uber. I think that's the Eagles' approach anyway. The Eagles are a very careful, smart organization when it comes to injuries. They're not forcing anything. No. Did you see the latest that people are have commented on? So apparently, Jalen Hurts screensaver. Have you seen this one?
Jalen Hurts screens. Oh yeah, I heard about that. Yeah,
it's him walking off with all the confetti coming down, and he's using it as motivation every single time. This is what we're digging in on now.
If he wants that constant reminder to motivate himself to be better in any way, fine. If he, some guys say, I want to forget about that as quick as possible.
Yeah.
If he wants that constant reminder of that feeling he had when he walked off that field in the grandest of moments, knowing that they had that game in halftime and let it slip,
yeah,
then more power to him.
I'm with you. I think it's great. And it's him. It's so on brand for him. It's not him sitting in his Bentley. It's him remembering that moment. I think it's everything that Jalen Hurts is all about.
Exactly. Yeah. That's a part of his persona. He is self-motivated. He's such a mature individual for 24, 25 years of age. He is the consummate leader on that team. The way the players rally around him is second to none.
Yep.
Whatever he needs to stay focused, to stay laser focused, to be better than what he was. And I don't know how much better he can be than what he was last year.
Yeah.
More power to him. I thought the more definitive picture was where he dropped the ball. If he wanted that reminder,
right, that's true.
But I'm saying if that image is etched in his mind, that feeling he had, that emptiness in his stomach he had when he walked off that field, knowing that they were so close of winning that Super Bowl in his second year as a starter in the National Football League, then use it to the nth degree.
Well, I think too, what the impact you're also seeing is with DeAndre Swift is exactly what we thought it was going to be. He's just been a demon out of the backfield catching passes. I think this is going to be a big part of this offense incorporated here. Just utilizing what skills you have. I mean, this is where you love having the ability to pound Penny and use Swift in space, and how effective that can be here, whether that's, a swing pass or whether that's, a pitch to him, whatever. It's going to really be difficult for defenses to key on anything here when you have this many different, options at running back.
Don't bottle up DeAndre Swift between the tackles. Yep. He's so dangerous once he gets out in open space. I would line him up in the slot.
Yep.
Hitch pass, middle screen, left screen, right screen. Let him get behind those big bodies and wiggle his way downfield. I think that's where he's the most effective.
Yep. And
I would also think that would lessen the body damage he could endure as well.
That's true.
Plain and simple.
Yeah. Yeah. And Penny wants to get down a little bit weight-wise from where he's been the last couple of years. Still wants to keep the power, obviously, but he thinks that may help him in sort of maintaining here. And hey, I'm all for it. You know, if that, whatever he thinks would work best. Bradbury's had a thus far pretty good camp, which no surprise. I feel like he's just, man, second year sort of in this quasi system. I know it's a different coordinator, but they're playing the same sort of fundamental stuff. That's a biggie, man. I think Bradbury's going to be a monster this year.
I do too, and rightfully so. He's another one. You know, he never had that chance when he was with the Giants, you know, to get that close to winning it all.
Yeah.
And I think he's on a mission. He's come back here, signed that contract, could have got a bit more money in the open market, took lesser money because he knows there's unfinished business here. And he's with the team he's comfortable with. They have a great nucleus of players coming back. You got everything you need to have an opportunity to get back to the big game again. You know, I expect him to be as consistent this season as he was last year.
Yeah, I'm with you. And look, I think that the big one for me is Slay. I mean, that's the one that I worry about just because of the way that he finished last year. And I don't know what that's going to look like, honestly. I don't know if he's a guy on the downside. He just got into a bit of a funk last year. He started off great, and then it was not great the rest of the way, including the playoffs.
Year older, hopefully a year wiser.
Yeah.
You know, you wonder when he gets to that age, what is he now, 32, 33?
Yep.
His father time creeping up on him.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously the Eagles don't feel that way because they brought him back at a restructured deal.
Yeah.
And he was probably their best option compared to what was out there in the open market. That's understandable. They didn't want to use a high draft pick to pick another corner, obviously. You know, and this team, you know, notoriously they like to build from the trenches.
Yep.
You know, and so, you know, he's got one more shot in the sun to see if he can do it, you know, and he's smart enough. I mean, there's nothing he should be able to not see, but can the mental mechanism kick in with that ability to where he can hold it down more consistently than he did just a season ago? And I think he knows that as well as anybody.
Mm-hmm.
He knows how he started compared to how he finished. So you have so many guys on this team that should be self-motivated because of what they did all season long and how it ended.
Yeah.
You know, it just crashed at the most inopportune time.
No question.
I would say Slay will come back on a mission as well to kind of quiet the doubters out there, so to speak.
Absolutely. All right. You know what? Let's do this, Derek. Let's keep the football momentum going when we come back, because it has been an off season of running backs, and not in a good way, not in a they're getting paid way, in a weird, controversial, strange offseason. And it got way weirder with the Jonathan Taylor stuff over the weekend. This stuff, I mean, is straight out of a soap opera. But between he puts it out there, he's unhappy. He meets with Jim Irsay in his, you know, big RV at camp, then comes out and throws the gauntlet down, and then the Colts respond. Let's dig into all of it when we come back. But he's not the only one. All right, so we'll dive into the running back situation in the NFL when we return. Derek Gunn, Rob Ellis, Sports Take, JAKIB Sports YouTube Network. Let's talk about Jim Murray and Principal Financial Group, because finding the right person to trust with your finances can be a scary proposition, and I'm right there on the front of the line. I was for a long time, but found that right person with Jim, and I trust him with my finances as well as Principal Financial Group. Whether it's retirement planning, 401k review, insurance review, or you have a small business and you need help with your employee benefits, that's another resource that Jim can assist you with. I know personally I've entrusted my IRA, my 401k rollover with Jim, and I couldn't be any happier. You will be too. Give him a call. 610-996-4751. 610-996-4751. Or you could email him as well. Murray, MURRAY.Jim@principal.com. That's Murray.Jim@principal.com.